If you like this channel and what I do here, please help to support my work by checking out one of my books, available from Lulu Publishing and Amazon.com. Thank you. Hi folks, Carl James here from Electric Media Madness, and I'm joined again by Dan Ryan. How you doing?
I'm good.
For another Rewatchable.
Yes.
We've got a real treat for fans of the Orville, because we've taken 4 of the best from Season 2. Identity Parts 1 and 2. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and The Road Not Taken, the 2-part finale of Season 2. Bit late to the game with the Orville, but you have watched a few of them, haven't you?
I watched a few before.
Yeah.
I've seen a few before, but yeah.
Enough to be reasonably familiar with the show. Yeah. It's a great show, and as we'll go on, we'll talk about how the reasons why we think it's a great show. A lot of it's to do with the fact that it's just the nature of what it is. It's a very, very well made show. Yeah. Great stories, fantastic stories, and really good acting, likeable characters, all that kind of thing. But also in that, for me, as a dyed-in-the-wool Trekkie, it is the heir apparent to Star Trek, as far as I'm concerned today. Very much so. Knows how to do it properly. But we'll start with Identity Parts 1 and 2, really. And there is really a sort of a Kalon arc to these 4 episodes, isn't there? You know, it's this idea of Isaac, the resident Kalon on board the Orville, basically just shuts down, and they take him home to the Kalon homeworld, and they find out a bit about what's going on with the Kalon. And it's quite a long story short. Basically, they find out that the Kalon don't like organics. They were suppressed by them. A story of sort of equality and all that kind of thing. But they killed off their builders effectively. And then they sent Isaac out as an emissary to see whether other biological races in the galaxy were worthy of living, for want of a better way of putting it. And they decided they're not, and they hijacked the Orville and chuck all the crew in the cargo bay, pretty much, and set off with this fleet of Kalon ships to destroy the Earth. And
one thing that just, not about the specific episode that I noticed, well, I didn't notice in this episode, but from the whole show generally, it does a very good balance of the comedy in it. It's like, it'll be a really serious situation, and they fit the comedy in well, so it doesn't take away from the seriousness.
No.
And basically like that. It's Seth MacFarlane, really.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people have been critical. I think there are probably more people that are dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek fans. I mean, people forget that Star Trek has always done comedy very, very well. It's not a comedy show, but it does know how to be funny. Yeah. And although maybe the humour is not sort of fitting with Star Trek as such, but that's more in a comparison terms. In its own right, Seth MacFarlane can do what he likes, really. It's his show, you know. Yeah. But you're right, it's a great balance between, and it is very, very funny. I mean, that's something we'll talk about when we talk about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, with the nightclub scene and all that, and things like that, you know. Yeah. Good humour. I'm not overly a huge fan of Seth MacFarlane's comedy. I used to like Family Guy, and I very much went off it. And
I'm the same,
that kind of thing. It's just not really my thing. But the comedy that's in the Orville for me is just right. Yeah, it's not too garish. It's not too near the knuckle. I'm not being prudish about it, but it does it just right.
But it's an interesting episode. You're not really like, you are aware that something's not quite right when they get to that planet. Yeah. And, you're just kind of, like the crew, sat there waiting
to find out. Because it's a story about Dr. Finn and the kids, and their relationship with Isaac for over half of that first part. It's about them sort of saying goodbye to him because he's going to go home now, and the relationship that's been growing. Kind of started a little bit in season 1, that did, but really kicked in full in season 2. Their relationship blossoming.
I mean, I didn't even see the start of it because I haven't really seen any episodes focused on them up to this point. But they did it well. Yeah, it was done well.
It's a credit to the show that you can drop in without the key episode for season 2 is called The Happy Refrain, which is the love story between Dr. Finn and then Isaac.
Yeah.
Very, very good episode. Very good episode. But like I say, you don't have to. You know right from the get go that there's. Well, they do. They sit the kids down, don't they, and talk to them when they start whispering, seeing each other. So you don't have to have seen that episode to know that's the mark of a good show that can do that.
And also on top of that, I am going to watch this after.
Yes.
Like after watching these, I want to watch more. So.
And I don't think there's really a dud in the Orville at all. Any episodes that are like, they're all really good episodes, really good stories. Thoughtful stories as well. Lots of action and excitement, especially with these stories,
Yeah. Especially the second part of this episode.
But we can talk about that really. I mean, you also want to mention something about the special effects as well, because that's something where we had quite a conversation
we were talking about.
Because obviously in part 2 of Identity, we see a great big whopping battle between the Union and the Kalon ships, and the Krill come in as well, and all that kind of thing. So yes,
we were talking quite a lot about the models, because most of it's models.
It's quite substantially model work in the Orville, yeah.
I mean, we were talking about how kind of natural, more realistic models look, because CGI it has a feel of sort of futuristic, not quite as realistic, but with models it kind of the movements that the ships make and things look more realistic, and they look like a real ship could feasibly. I mean, some people would say, well, how would you know? Because we don't see that kind of thing. Yeah. But you can. I think we've been spoiled by many, many years of really good quality special effects, particularly the Star Wars films and things like that in the early days with the model work and all that kind of thing. We've been spoiled by it, and we've got used to seeing things happen in a certain way on screen, haven't we? And we talked about the artificiality of CGI. Yeah.
In some cases, it's great. I mean, Episode 3 of the Star Wars, I mean that's all CGI, the battle above Coruscant, but it looks fantastic. I mean, a lot of people would argue that it doesn't, but I think it really holds up well. Yeah. A lot of what you see now, it really doesn't hold up well.
So I haven't really seen anything with models in full. I haven't seen anything in full HD with models in for quite a while, and it's really like a fresher breath of air to see it. I can't quite describe it.
Well, there's a lot. They do a lot of CGI augmentation to it. It's not a case of like the way the spaceship model stuff was done years ago. It's obviously in keeping with,
of course,
the technology that's available today. It's not just a case of they've shot it all in models and that's it. But I have seen some little tiny clips of the models when they film them against like blue screen, green screen, and whatnot. And it does look real. It's got that. It's got that because we talked about human perception, didn't we? How the eye can recognise what quite a lot. Human beings, we can recognise what's artificial and what's not to quite a substantial degree. It holds up really well.
See, I guarantee, right, to anyone watching this, if you in 20 years, right. But now I'm going to compare these two shows just because they're the first two that I can think of that came out at the same time, right? You got Star Trek Discovery and this. They both came out at the same time. I guarantee if you watch a ship fight, or just the ships flying from either of them, I guarantee that the Orville with the models will look better in 20 years.
Yes.
I guarantee. It's the same with, like, if you look at Star Wars, if you look at Episode 1 to Episode 4, Episode 4 looks better than Episode 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people would say that's because it was still much earlier in CGI technology.
But when you think in 20 years, how far ahead are we going to be versus now? So.
Yeah. And when I look at the amount of money that's thrown at, like, I don't like to bash on them, but because I do think inherently there's some really good films in the franchise. But you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and a lot of the stuff that's set in space as well, and the battles and things like that. It's blatantly artificial, blatantly CGI. There's a hell of a lot of what is almost like copy and paste, cut and paste, all that kind of thing. And we talked about this with Star Trek as well nowadays.
And
Star Trek
Rise of Skywalker was a big one for that as well.
Yeah. And there shouldn't be. We shouldn't be in an age now where those kind of that you can recognise that, and it's almost like they're shortcuts in a way.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for the meticulous amount of time that these I go, all the old Starlog magazines, which I've got them all as PDFs, but I had a lot of them on in paper, form years ago. The old science fiction magazines, and you would read about how the special effects people on films and TV shows, the amount of time they spent building the models, photographing them against the matte stuff and all that kind of thing, and the explosions and everything, and there's such an art to it. These are real craftsmen that really, and that's not to criticise people that do it CGI nowadays, but going back to what we were saying, it really holds up well, because this is a massive battle in Identity Part 2 of the Orville, and to some degree again with the special effects that are in The Road Not Taken, which we'll come to that as well.
But Seth MacFarlane's put a lot of care into this show.
Yeah, I think it's his baby. He loves Star Trek. He loves science fiction.
You can tell, which we also discussed quite a lot after watching. Like the things that he's kind of borrowed from elsewhere.
Yeah.
From which I think were in both episodes, all 4 episodes at some point. But he hasn't just like gone, oh okay, I'll have that. That looks cool. He's shown that he understands the context of it and the series that it's from and everything. So when he uses a scene like in the next episodes, we'll be talking about the asteroid thing from Star Wars. You can see that he understands properly what that's from, and he hasn't just copied it.
No. There is a degree of it looks cool, naturally.
Yeah.
And this is something that we talked about in terms of if you look at in the larger context of borrowing, I would say that you could argue that Identity Parts 1 and 2 is a little bit of a riff off The Best of Both Worlds and that kind of thing, and the Road Not Taken is almost like things like Yesterday's Enterprise and that with Star Trek Next Generation. That I know there's been plenty of other stories around before that.
Of course, yeah.
But given how big a Star Trek fan he is, he's
done it in a very respectful way.
But he's done it very, he understands that material. And so I would imagine, I can't speak personally because I don't know them and I've not been a fly on the wall when they make this show, but I would imagine that it came first and foremostly from the idea of, I've got an idea for a story, it's written, rewritten, get to the end product, and at no point in that was there any gimmicks. It was like when they're looking through it afterwards, this would look cool if we put this in. But the story is already established, very much so. And it comes from a place of respecting science fiction stories, respecting the genre, because you've got to start fundamentally with a really good story and go from there.
Even when you've got the cool scenes, the story is still the focus the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, you don't, at any point, sort of, you're never left with a period of time without the story mentioned. That is always the focus in these 4 episodes.
Yeah. That is what very much with these 4 episodes is a rattle. Going through, and we've talked as well about how we get the feeling sometimes with other productions. We won't keep bashing on certain shows, but certainly the state of Star Trek and Star Wars today is a bit like that. But it's almost like they sit there and they write a list down of all the cool things. Yeah. This would look cool. That would look cool. This idea, and it's almost like, well, we'll use that very long list of all these gimmicks and all that, and then kind of mash a story around that.
Yeah.
But those things shouldn't be done until the story's in place, I think.
No.
I very much believe that. Subconsciously they might have some of these ideas in their mind, but I think fundamentally it has to come from a beginning, middle and end story.
Yeah. People just need to believe in their stories more, and that's a big problem. And this isn't just a massive dig at Star Trek.
But I think superficiality, surface level stuff, is the theme nowadays. Certainly in Hollywood, where people are coming at TV shows and films from a place of the message. That's certainly something that's going on nowadays.
Definitely.
People's politics and all that kind of thing, and all the gimmicks and all the things that will look good to make flashy stuff and all that. All of that seems to come first before a story, and that's completely backwards. That should be the other way around.
And the Orville is the other way around.
It is the other way around. Yeah.
It has politics in it.
Yeah,
it has
absolutely.
It has things that other shows are pushing at the forefront, but it has it in there at the right amount.
Yeah.
It's not forced. Like there are things like gay characters in that
Absolutely,
in the Orville, and it's done in a
same-sex marriage and sex change, forced sex change of a child. You know, in season 1 with the Mocklin storylines and that. Yeah, absolutely. And you never ever get the feeling that they're bashing you over the head with it and preaching to you. It's just a story that's told, and you're left to
just feels,
make up your own mind.
It feels normal and natural, like it's not something that needs to be a message at all.
No,
like it's part of it.
Yeah,
and that needs to be done more.
And when science fiction does it very, very well, and Star Trek has always, up till in the older days of Star Trek, it's always done it very, very well. Is it comes natural. It feels like this is just a normal, the same as a lot of people like us. We see the world like that nowadays. Is that these things are there in the world. It's just there, and that is it. You know, these people. You know, it doesn't need to. There doesn't need to be this massive noise made about things.
Yeah. And that's how it needs to be treated. Also,
and that is very much, and that is absolutely where the credit needs to go for the Orville, because that's what they do. That's what they do. They put these little morality tales out there. It's not screaming and shouting at you. It's not bashing you over the head. You will submit.
It's just naturally there.
It's just there. It's part of the universe and it's to reflect the time. To make it. To create that idea in the world. It's a very optimistic thing. That's something else I wanted to say about the Orville, which when we talk about it being the heir apparent to Star Trek, is that what has always been, certainly Gene Roddenberry understood this. People mistakenly say that Gene Roddenberry believed it. He didn't. But Gene Roddenberry was a business. He was a writer and a businessman and all that kind of thing. And all he did was just knew what worked well, and he knew what the fans wanted. So he went to all the conventions in the 70s and onwards and that. But he could see the fans would come to him and say, "This is what we love about Star Trek." It's fielding your fandom, finding out what they... And they would say, first and foremostly, yes, it was the characters, it was stories, but it was this optimistic place. It wasn't nihilistic and apocalyptic and all that kind of thing. It was optimistic, it was hopeful, humanity had moved forward, and there were no boundaries, there were no one wanted for anything, all that kind of thing. It was about betterment of an entire race, an entire civilization of species, human beings, not just a particular subset of that species, and about going out there and exploring and meeting new cultures and that kind of thing. And again, the Orville does that fantastically. It's what Star Trek should be doing nowadays. But Star Trek just the writers and producers that work on Star Trek, they just don't seem to understand it. Which goes back to what you were saying. They don't understand the context. They might read a few lines or see a clip of something on YouTube or whatever, or watch one episode or read a Wikipedia page. They've not lived it for years and years and years. Alex Kurtzman openly talked about on the commentary for the first Star Trek film in 2009 that he was never really a Star Trek fan. So he didn't really.
I'm not surprised.
He would see the odd episodes when he would go around to his mate's house, and that was it. So how is it that he's like the running the shop effectively for Star Trek, the entire Star Trek franchise now? But Seth MacFarlane, there's a very famous clip on YouTube of Seth MacFarlane doing his own, dressed in his Captain Kirk t-shirt and all that when he was much younger, doing his own little fan film of Star Trek. He loved Star Trek. He still loves Star Trek. He did cameos on Enterprise, and that he's and a good sizable number of the people that work on the Orville worked on Star Trek. Brannon Braga and Andre Vormanis and all these people.
You can tell that he's trying. He loves it.
Yeah.
I mean, and this would be Star Trek if they'd have accepted his pitch.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd really be much different.
It's a very well-known story that he pitched several, I believe. But certainly we know of at least one.
Some of the alien races would be Star Trek races instead. But I think the stories and possibly the way the characters are would be the same. He's making the Star Trek show that everyone wanted. Yeah. Basically.
And I think it's generally a universally accepted idea amongst people who really understand the whole Star Trek universe and science fiction to a larger degree, they can recognise it for what it is. I mean, the identity parts 1 and 2 there, it's a great 2-part story.
Yeah.
It's a good science fiction story, a cliched story nevertheless, you know, about artificial life forms and all that kind of thing, you know.
But done right.
But done right compared to...
Star Trek and Fate. Did it season long, twice, and failed miserably.
Yeah,
he
on
does
two
it.
occasions.
He does it. First time, 2 episodes.
Done.
Yeah, done it. Did it right.
Yeah. That says a lot, doesn't it? That really does say a lot. So there's not really a great deal to say about Identity Parts 1 and 2. I mean, it's got some fantastic space battles in it. Some really good funny, like the P corner and the cargo bay. Don't go over the P corner, you know. Yeah, and the party that they have for Isaac as well when he leaves, and Gordon. Often Gordon tends to get the best humour, I think, in the Orville, but you know, Bortus as well. That, but yeah, it's some great stuff and some really nice stuff. It doesn't feel cliched that much, but you know, the family.
It has a bit of everything.
The doctor and the kids, and it's got everything, hasn't it? Yeah,
it's just got the suspense. It's got comedy. It's got action. It's
And a completely different direction. I mean, is there anything else you wanted to say about Identity before we move on to the other 2 episodes?
That's probably about it. Yeah.
Because a very different feel for Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Completely different, yeah.
I tend to think of that episode and then The Road Not Taken as a bit like Improbable Cause and The Die Is Cast in Deep Space Nine, where the first episode's a very low-key story. Great science fiction story. Again, it's one of those ones that's been done to death, where Commander Grayson... a younger version, 7-year younger version of herself appears, and then they have the dilemma of would it change the timeline and all this kind of thing. But principally, that story is about the relationship between Captain Mercer and Commander Grayson, their failed marriage. And it's a great idea, and I think, like myself, who tend to sort of think about existential issues sometimes and all that, you know, there's always going to be that point in life where you think sort of what ifs, and Ed Mercer's looking back on his life and sort of saying, I've got a second chance here, you know. He asks Kelly if you know, is there a chance that we're going to get to that, and she says no, and he sees an opportunity to have another go at it, doesn't he? You know. But
then he realises that he's not that same person anymore.
No.
Like he thinks he is. He thinks he's that know, young mad lad.
Yeah. Which is seen in the party, in the nightclub, which is fantastic. Yeah. Because he realises all of a sudden, no, I'm not that young person anymore.
Yeah. But Bortus is.
But Bortus is quite not. It's a great scene, that is, when they're dancing away. But the payoff for that episode is that when Kelly goes back...
You think that she's...
You think she's going to go out on that second date with them.
Yeah. And she says no. And then the episode ends. And you get the finale of the season, which is just what happened because they never got together and got married and served on the Orville, and it completely changed. And the Kalon did succeed. They did their invasion. I feel sorry for anyone who had to wait a week to watch that.
Yeah, like me.
Like it's literally the last 2 seconds. You're like, what?
Yeah. I was shocked when I saw it. I really thought, oh. Because it's not the sort of episode that you think of as being, with them having separate episodes, you know, they weren't parts 1 and 2 or anything like that, so you don't tend to think of them.
It doesn't even say to be continued.
It doesn't say to be
You're just
continued.
like, oh, alright.
Yeah, but they are a 2-part.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And you go straight into that, the Kalon are everywhere, Earth's been wiped out, and the Lochlans have been wiped out, and Ed and Gordon are in a shuttle looking for a food replicator, for once. I don't know what they call them, I can't remember what they're, food dispenser. And they have a run-in with the Kalon, and they get picked up by a ship, a scavenger ship, and they think they're going to get their skins taken off and wear suits, as Gordon puts it. But it's Kelly and Dr. Finn and the rest of the gang. They're all there, and she tells him that they were supposed to get married and that, but it never happened because of that mistake, that decision she made. And now they've got to put the timeline right again, because they tried to wipe Kelly's memory and it didn't work, but they found a way to make it work this time. But we get some great stuff, don't we? a few little plot holes in it here and there.
Yeah.
We picked.
Yeah, there was a few.
Why the medicine that she needed to help the mind wipe, she could have found out on the Orville, and you also said about they might have found the scanner thing, but of course the time device was on the Orville, wasn't it? So they had to go to the Orville. But then there was also about all the broken bottles in the bar on the Orville.
Everything's perfect.
I said, well, Borta's probably gathered them up, all the ones that were not broken, and put them back on the shelf.
Borta's actually a heavy alcoholic.
Yeah, he wasn't living on rations. He was just drinking booze for 9 months.
He's on the brink of liver failure.
Yeah. Although it is established in the series that Bortus can eat just about anything. They dare him to eat broken glass and napkins and all kinds of things in one episode. So.
But 9 months of alcohol.
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean, there was the episode where him and Clyden got totally addicted to smoking cigarettes. So you haven't seen that one, but that was just hilarious. So if they've got that, if they can get that addicted to something that quickly, then
maybe he is an alcoholic.
Yes. We didn't find Borders just crawling down on his hands and knees on the floor. But some great stuff there, and they get the Orville, and they go off and they send Kelly back, and so they put things right. She goes for that. So she agrees to go on that second date. It's the end of the season, so we don't know. I have heard of some rumours that it is something that they are going to take in a direction for season 3. I don't know, but it feels quite concluded, that story doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I'm not quite sure where they'd go
if they're going to do that. Yeah. But a great story, a great way to end the season. One of the things I did want to say as well, because we talked about the heir apparent to Star Trek and all that as well, but again, I'm not bashing, but I do think it's really important that people talk about why do you criticise the TV shows nowadays? Why do you criticise the films? And I think it's a rhetorical question. It answers itself, when you look at it. But I think it's really important to show what can be done, what should be done particularly in the science fiction genre today, and it isn't happening. This thing of characters that are narcissistic, nihilistic, unlikable, really reprehensible characters sometimes, and they're not. And these are your main characters who you should be rooting for, and unrelatable characters and whatever. Not that people need to relate to characters. I don't need to feel that I relate to a character to watch it. If I like a character, that's it. If I don't, I don't. But these are really good characters on the Orville. They're likeable characters. Yeah. They're not like, they don't piss you off, and they don't sort of wind you up the wrong way or that kind of thing. And they fit well within the universe and the stories. And that's something that I really get out of like that two-parter at the end of the season. It's a lovely little story. It shows you what happens sometimes in relationships when you let go of the reins a little bit and you lose track of what's important and all that. Plus you get a chance to get a nice look at Adrian Palicki's cleavage. Well, low cut cleavage anyway. I know, I'm a man. Go on, criticise me. I don't care. Yeah. I mean,
objectifying women.
She's a good-looking woman, I'm sorry, but she is. She's a good-looking woman, and she's a great actress as well. She plays that character brilliantly. But if you're going to put a low-cut top on her, I'm going to look at it.
she actually plays. Well, she basically plays 3 characters in these 3 her 7 years before, her now, her in the alternate universe. Yeah, they're all different characters, but she plays them all very well.
Well, yeah.
And it should be a movie. The last part should be a movie.
Yeah, it would make a great film.
I want to go to the theatres.
Yeah, you would pay good money for that, wouldn't you? Yeah, I would anyway. Yeah. I mean, we've said that there are certain stories in science fiction from time to time that you come across and you think that would make a fantastic movie. We talked about All Good Things, the finale of Next Generation. I actually think Identity would have made a good film as well. But The Road Not Taken would have made a great film as well. Real credit where credit's due for the people that work on the Orville. I cannot say enough good things about this show and the people that work on it. It's anybody who is out there watching this video and you've not seen the Orville before, please go and watch it. It's a great show. It really is. You're not going to regret. It's certainly not time wasted. It's a great way to spend an hour to sit and watch an episode of the Orville. It really is. I can't say enough good things about it.
It's kind of fucked up that I've watched Discovery and Picard, but not the Orville.
Yeah.
What is wrong with me?
I know. But that's the way things go. We want Star Trek. People that we want good science fiction. We really hope, foolishly, get our hopes up every time these things come along. Thinking, I did it with Discovery. I thought this could be a good show, and stupidly gave them the benefit of the doubt when they announced that Picard was coming along. I've seen people doing it now with the Strange New Worlds, the Pike series. I'm no interest until those people that are running the entire franchise at the moment are gone, and somebody like Seth MacFarlane is running it. I've got no interest. I don't care how they say it's going to be an optimistic show and it's going to be more this and it's going to be that and da 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 da. I don't want those people. I want people who know exactly what they're doing, people who appreciate science fiction, people who understand it, people who know how to write good stories, people who know how to write good characters, people who know how to create something that's watchable, which goes with the theme of the videos we do here, you know. And also something that's respectful to the fans, that isn't insulting to the fans, that isn't saying, oh, you'll pay for this, you'll watch it. It doesn't matter what crap we put on the screen, you'll watch it. Treating fans with complete contempt.
Yeah, Seth MacFarlane. This is like you can tell it's a passion project.
Oh yeah. I mean, the only disadvantage was Seth MacFarlane, if he was running Star Trek, is that we might not get any more Orville. And that's a sad thing, really, because I do want to see more Orville. May it continue. And I doubt very much that anybody to do with the commissioning of the Orville is watching this video. But please, keep it going for as long as you can.
Don't sleep on it. Watch it.
Yeah.
Watch it. I am going to after we have done this. I'm going to watch more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a love fest, I know, but it's not sycophantic. It comes from a place of I've watched and read and studied science fiction all my life. I would like to think that I know when something's good and when something's bad in science fiction, or something's meaningful or not, or optimistic or pessimistic. I like apocalyptic science fiction sometimes. I like dystopian science fiction sometimes, but I like it because it reminds us of the things that are dangerous, the kind of worlds that we should not allow to come into being. Yeah. 1984 is a classic example of that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's that kind of the old saying of there, but for the grace of God go I. If you look at it and we can see a world coming around like that, where we are rewriting history and things like that. That's dangerous territory you're getting into. And I won't say any more than that, but I do feel that that's nothing more than me just talking about how revisionist history is a very, very dangerous thing. And I think that there has to be optimism in the world. You've got to have optimism. Yeah. And you can't have the world being a miserable, nihilistic place all the time. And the Orville I talk highly of it for legitimate reasons. No, it's not because I'm a sycophantic or credit where credit's due. It does what it says on the tin, So yeah. So anyway, should we rate them? Identity Part 1.
It does a lot. It does is a good character episode for most of it. There's a lot of things.
Great cliffhanger as well.
Great cliffhanger, but then you've got stuff like the tombs that they find and things like that are really good. Yeah. So
with all the skulls of all the builders and the engineers that built them and that. Yeah.
I think 8.5 is my score for this.
I'm gonna go for 9. Yeah. Part 2.
No, this one's better. This one's better. Yeah. I think 9.5 for this one.
Right. I'm gonna go for 10. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm slightly a little bit more above you in terms of the score, but I may have perhaps been a bit over generous, but I think Part 2 is brilliant. Yeah. So tomorrow.
This was another good one. It's a lot of character stuff again, like the first part, but more than that one. This is completely about all the characters, and you really get a lot of development for them
as well. So you're right.
But it really sells them as real people, like episodes like this anyway. Yeah. I think 8.5 again.
Right. I love this episode. Yeah. I really do love this episode. I'm a fan of Adrienne Palicki as an actress. Not so much the person, but in terms of her acting and that. And I really like the character of Commander Grayson. That's a point to make there as well. Is they talk about how you define and portray strong female characters in television and film. that just don't work. They're so contrived. But that is a good example of a really strong female character. It goes back to the old days of like Commander Ivanova in Babylon 5 and Delenn and Major Kira in Deep Space Nine and Dax and really strong female characters that were well thought out and well written, and Commander Grayson is one of those. I like the character and I like the relationship between her and Ed as well. Do you know what? I'm going to give this a 10. I really do think it's a great episode. Okay, Road Not Taken.
Honestly, right, if anyone doesn't say 10 after watching this, they have either poor taste or they're lying, right?
Yeah.
This is really good. This is really good.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's a great story, loads going on.
Like, by the time you finish watching it, you feel like you've watched a cinematic epic.
Yeah.
Something like it's really just... Yeah. They go really all out on that episode.
And special effects as well. And they don't feel like they're tacked on. They serve the story, like when they're trying to hide from the Kaelon inside the black hole and you see everything moving really quick and all that. And the time dilation effect and all that. And the black hole, that's up there with the standards of the black hole in Interstellar.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's it's in terms of quality of special effects, it's really, for a TV episode, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It looks really good. Yeah, it's a 10 for me as well, yeah. That's 3 episodes out of 4 that are 10 and one of them are 9, so, I mean, Okay then, so thanks for joining me and Dan. Thank you for joining me as well for doing it. And please, if you can, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it about. I really, truly appreciate that. And we will both see you in the next video. Take care.